Good afternoon. It's July the 10th, Saturday afternoon. I'm back in the reading nook on what is a warm and slightly overcast day with big pile of parcels and a nice hot cup of tea. And the next one I'm going to dig into is this one. Now obviously I've already opened this up, so you'll have seen books from this previously, and it is this, which is the box set for Mercenaries, Spies and Private Eyes, and in my case this is basically a box with everything that was published for the game as far as I'm aware. Not what came in the standard box back in 1986. So far, I have pulled out the original first edition rulebook with the classic cover, and then border crossing scenario for both Mercenaries, Spies and Private Eyes, and Espionage, which is the Hero Games role-playing supplement of basically modern action and spies. Mugshots 1, number 1, The Case of the Pacific Clipper, which is a solo adventure by Dave Arneson. Another solo adventure, this one by The Adventure of the Jade Jaguar, by Mike Stackpole, who designed Mercenary, Spies and Private Eyes. The one thing that surprised me was the second edition rulebook, which of course really probably came in the box set rather than the full colour, the one with the colour cover, which was the first edition. Mugshots 2, which was another solo adventure, but designed for modern day, along with lots of maps and personalities for a modern day American city, but easily adapted elsewhere. So the next thing I'm going to look at is Raid on Rajallapor. Now this is from Grenadier Models Inc. So you're going to get a double unboxing, because I've unboxed it from this, and this is still in its shrink wrap, so double unboxing essentially. So the job seemed easy enough. Raid a heavily guarded estate in northwestern India and steal a valuable statue. You've done the same thing many times in the past. Yet this one mercenary contract you are having second thoughts about. Your employer seems confident of your success, perhaps too confident. The job may turn out to be your last. Will you survive the raid on Rajallapor? And it's a Mercenary, Spies and Private Eyes adventure for 4 to 6 players. Now, Grenadier Models are famous for their miniatures, but they also produced some scenarios, 3 I think, for 3 different role-playing games. So obviously one of them is Raid on Rajallapor for Mercenary, Spies and Private Eyes. Then there is a Mystery on Monaghan Island for Call of Cthulhu, and you'll find a review of that on my blog. And I think the third one, and this is off the top of my head, this is Disappearance on Aramat, which is a traveller scenario. Again, I don't have a copy of that, and I've never seen it, so I could be wrong. So just let's open this up. Plastic. Okay. This is let's have a look. Who's it? I'm trying to think who's the author is. Well, the credits are cover art. Oh, it's Gary Pilkington. It basically says cover art by Martin Keeley, interior illustrations Flint Henry, then written by Gary Pilkington. And this is from 1984. And we get into his empty pages, and presumably that's an illustration of the face of the statue, and we have a timeline with basically a classic illustration of an Indian goddess there. and then we're on to the basically the setup and getting to the mission, including the encounter at a checkpoint. And to get to the estate itself, with a slightly ridiculous illustration of somebody parachuting to the mission complete with cigarette in mouth. I mean, if you want to smoke on the way down, that's your choice, of course. And then the estate, illustration of the estate with and temple complex of some kind. I have to say, quite a heavy art style there. Not particularly. I mean, it's a bit cartoonish at that. And we turn over the page, and yeah, we're getting kind of like very pulpy here. I think, you know, with the villain, General Paja Jalna. Sort of like classic villain with it's essentially knee-high boots. I'm not quite whether you want to call them jack boots or not. Okay, jodhpurs, riding crop, heavy epaulets. Only a couple of medals, I have to say, and cigarette holder. And sunglasses. It is a little bit of a cliche, I suppose. Whether or not you would change that today if you were running the scenario is another matter. But remember, this was 1984, and sort of like that's 25 years ago. Sorry, 35 years. 35 years ago, and it's kind of a different world, as it were. Then we get into the maps themselves, and that obviously, basically, essentially, obviously, that's Shiva. That's what I meant. Basically, maps of the location, particular statues found there, and basically a greater map of the raid site. And generally, yeah, basically also of the house, barracks. Again, decent maps. I mean, they're better than the illustrations by far. And then we're into basically essentially the idea. Essentially, they get back, but basically going to India from Pakistan. That's got its own problems. It has to be said. And then we have a solo scenario for Mercenaries, Spies and Private Eyes. And the scenario is designed for a secret agent type of character. It should have brawling, martial arts, seduction, lockpicking, safe tracking, observation. So let's, obviously the inspiration here for that is, James Bond, complete with henchman with some kind of bladed weapon. That it looks almost like that's welded to his arm or is in replacement of his hand, and this runs to let's have a look, 27, 29. I'm basically looking at sort of like 53 entries, so relatively short. You play through that about an hour or so, and then you've got character sheets at the back for the different mercenaries in here. Essentially, they're all but blank. You really just have the skills and the base stats, and it's up to you to provide the colour fiction as to who they are. Otherwise, they're kind of ciphers. And ideally, really, what the GM or player should do is go away and develop them a bit more into fuller colours, into full characters. So, there's a bit of background information here, and I'm basically correct what I said earlier. So the Call of Cthulhu scenario is the horrible secret of Monaghan Island, and I have a review of that on my blog. Raid on Rajallapor is the Mercenary, Spies and Private Eyes scenario, which I'm looking at, and Disappearance in Aramat is the Traveller scenario. And there's a fourth one which kind of eluded me, which is Cloudland, a fantasy role-playing scenario. And then, of course, you have Grenadier, of course, makes 25mm figures suitable for Mercenaries, Spies, and Private Eyes. So we have 2 sets of miniatures advertised here: Grenadiers, Agents, and Spies, and Mercenary sets. So you can see them here. Nice illustrate. No, let's put photos of them and a bit of advertising in the back. So yeah, I don't know what I really think about this. Essentially, it's a product of its time. Politics and international relations would have been different, and sensibilities would have been different to what you would see today. So you could still have scenarios like this, but I'm not entirely sure you could have a character like that, and certainly not illustrated like that. I'm not. It's basically it's a little bit cliched and it's potentially offensive. But again, 35 years ago. But I will come to review this in due course, essentially when I'm digging into this box. So there's a lot here to review, essentially I need to get at the core rulebook and do that, but I'm not going to do it for a while yet. It would be more interesting to do it when I come to basically on its anniversary, which will be sort of like 2 or 3 years yet. And basically just really to highlight it then. But basically I've got the box set here ready to dig into it. So this is Raid on Rajallapor, a scenario for Mercenaries, Spies, and Private Eyes. You can track this down on eBay, or probably with just keep your eye out for it. Bit of history, something interesting, and from a bit of role-playing material from a publisher not known for its role-playing products, known for its miniatures, and also as well as for a couple of board games like Freedom of the Galaxy, which gave you essentially a board game with miniatures, and there's a couple in that series as well. I'd love to look at those, but they're from the 70s and a little bit more difficult to find. But that's a topic away from Mercenary, Spies, and Private Eyes and Raid on Rajallapor. So, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do click the like button, and of course, if you've got any feedback, I do take the right time to read your comments, and I appreciate them. And lastly, if you have enjoyed this and want to be alerted to yet more unboxings here in the Nook, then do click the subscribe button, in which case you will get to see me with more parcels like this, a book for me to discuss, and a nice hot cup of tea, and 10 minutes of your time with something that I may know nothing about, or I may know a little about, and can chat about. Again, thanks for watching another unboxing of the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, I appreciate it. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing. Bye for now.